Welcome, everybody, to the Liberty United Show. I'm your host, Jacob Oakes. Hey, we appreciate you following along. This is excellent content. Can't wait for you guys to see everything we have planned here. Just real quick, want to tell you guys about an amazing event that Liberty United has been working on. It is called A Great Awakening. We have amazing faith leaders from the community that I've been connecting with for a few years now. Just some solid people. Greg Johnson from Standing Together Ministry and Pastor Nate Fox, and Pastor Rod Hall. Myself as the director of Liberty United and special guest, constitutional, nationally recognized scholar Scott Bradley, talking about the role that the Bible played in our founding. This is a chance for us to gather as community. It's not about political faction. It's nonpartisan, interfaith, just a chance for us to call to awakening, to become excited about defending and promoting Christian values that advance liberty, and to stand together in excitement to defend and promote that as a community. We're serving free hot dogs and want you to come join us on June 13th. So guys, Liberty United is, we are all about defending constitutional principles. So I often talk of a tree that has many leaves on it, and those leaves are attached to twigs, then to branches, and then a trunk, and even below the trunk is roots. There's many things to be concerned about these days, whether it's even worrying about putting food on the table with this economy. Why should I care about policy? Well, sometimes civics lately doesn't seem to connect with people. What their concerns are, why should they care? And also, I think a concern is some people are like, what I say or do has no impact. But I feel like that's because we're chasing after those leaves. We're being constantly rage baited with headlines and news on social media. We want to get at the roots. We want to really dive deep and address the core here at Liberty United. With that, I thought this would be an excellent time to go over Constitution 101 framework to the Constitution. So many of you took a class, perhaps learning the preamble or learning some random facts and dates about U.S. history in high school, but you were not taught in our educational system the actual principles. You may have been taught some random dates and facts about history, but you weren't taught the core principles of liberty and that founded this country. So we're going to dive into that. And we are going to start clear back in England with the Magna Carta. So I've got a diagram I actually want to show you. In the year 1215, the people of England had enough. They started trying to hold accountability to their king. And they applied enough pressure that even the king signed a document that essentially recognized, okay, there's a line in the sand. The people do have rights. Before the Magna Carta, it was just assumed that the crown could do whatever they want to the people. You may have to be a little careful to not stir up a mob, but generally speaking, the crown could do whatever they want. Now, the Magna Carta came along and said that there's a line in the sand, the people do have rights, and it enumerated some rights of the people. But despite that, the crown was sovereign, not the people. So it was a step in the right direction and revolutionary for its time to say that the people had enumerated rights that were protected, but it still did not give sovereignty to the people. Then came along the American Revolution. We declared independence from Great Britain, 1776. We're actually celebrating 250 years this year. The Declaration of Independence flipped everything on its head. It totally flipped everything on its head in history, saying that the people are sovereign, they retain all authority and rights, and they delegate few specific authority to the government for the purpose of protecting rights. Okay, that was very revolutionary. There'd never been anything like that. And then we had the colonies and the states under a very loose, I call it a coalition. It was called the Confederation. To help you understand it, it was basically like 13 independent countries that were in a loose agreement with each other. And they realized that if they want to stand the test of time and be able to defend against Great Britain invading, they needed a stronger system. So that's where they formed a convention to discuss amending these Articles of Confederation. And actually, instead of amending, they ultimately just came up with a whole new system, the Constitution of the United States. They realized that there was a need for a little bit more authority under a general government. What do you do when there's an impasse and we need to raise money for a war to defend against Great Britain invading, or we need this or that, but the states are not agreeing to help in any way? We need a general government that has some authority to actually make a final decision on something, but they need to keep it very limited. So they did want to give a final say to a general government, but keep it very limited. And that is how we got the Constitution. We're going to dive into just a few things, just the basic core ideas that make up the Constitution, a few clauses, legal structure, things like that. And we're going to make it super simple because I hear all the time, I read the document and I don't get it. And I'm hoping that when you walk away from this, that is so clear as spring water for you. So let's look at the core principles. On the core principles, that was popular sovereignty. This is the idea that people are sovereign, not the government. So that we retain all the rights. This is iterated with the Ninth Amendment. The Ninth Amendment is the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So this is the idea that the people retain everything. And also nothing in the Constitution could be interpreted in any way that would deny or disparage your rights. So just because we're enumerating some kind of authority to the government or even listing a right of the people, that does not in any way, shape, or form say that your rights are limited to what's stated in the Constitution. And also the government can't do anything to infringe on your rights. They can't interpret a clause in the Constitution in such a way that benefits them to hurt you. Now, John Dickinson, one of the framers, he said that we do not claim our rights as coming from charters. What does he mean by this? Well, not only do your rights not come from the government, your rights come from God, but even the Constitution. So when I hear things like, it's my First Amendment right, it's my Second Amendment right, no, that is natural God-given right that existed, and the Constitution helps protect that right. So John Dickinson, from the get-go, was iterating, reminding us that your rights do not come from even the Constitution itself. It doesn't come from charters, okay? Now, the purpose of government is another thing. They clearly find that the purpose is listed in the preamble. The preamble is not an enumeration of a purpose for the federal government, but it's basically like the thesis, the mission statement, if you will. And it was saying that it's to secure the blessings of liberty. Government is there to provide justice, to protect our rights, to help us preserve liberty. That is the purpose of government. Boy, is that different than what we're seeing right now. But this was their goal and their mission, that government was established to help us in preserving liberty, because we have to have order in society. You can't have mere freedom is just your agency to act as according to free will. But does always acting according to free will, just because you have choice, does that mean that you are living empowered? Well, I could go eat at McDonald's 3 square meals a day, 365 days a year. If I ate at McDonald's 24/7, I am free to make that choice, but I'm making any choices that are going to further empower my life by doing that. So liberty is something greater than mere freedom. Freedom is just your ability to be an agent in making choices, but liberty is the product of making choices oriented with divine law, or AKA timeless principles. So they're telling us that we are seeking after liberty, not just freedom, but the blessings of liberty. In the Bible, James speaks of us being judged by the perfect law of liberty. He calls it law because it is an eternal law. It's an eternal concept that when you orient your life with divine law and you make that choice as a free agent, then you secure the product or the blessings of liberty. And that was their purpose in forming this Constitution and the purpose of our government. Let me show you guys a funny meme I made with James Madison. I'm going to put that on the screen here. So the Constitution was originally 4 pages. Now, we have hundreds of thousands of laws by the federal government. Imagine that. They literally wrote down, James Madison said that the powers delegated to the federal government are few and defined. That's in Federalist number 45. So, folks, few and defined, does that mean numerous and indefinite and arbitrary, open for interpretation? If something's defined, does that mean that it's arbitrary? That it just bends and it's my truth versus your truth. No, it's defined. So these powers delegated to the federal government, when we talk about a specific number 45, we're talking about a specific article number. So the Articles of Confederation were essays written by some of the founders, including James Madison, to mainly in New York, to advocate and persuade the people about the Constitution, that the core ideas about adopting new form of government and structure. And so these essays were called the Articles of Confederation, Federalist Papers. They were during the times of the Articles of Confederation, but the essays were called the Federalist Papers. And number 45, he said few and defined. Okay? So now, why should we have a limited government? We look at countries like Cuba. Guys, did you know that Venezuela was the third, perhaps it might have even been the second, no, for sure, it was at least the third largest in the world. And it was the largest economy in South America. And now we're looking at how impoverished it is. And that's what happens when you have socialism. And this is something the founders knew they wanted to avoid. Socialism and communism, these are more developed economic policies and ideas or philosophies that came after the time of the founding. But the core of it, totalitarian government, is still something that they understood very well. They were students of history. They had just resisted a very centralized authority with the crown. And they knew that they wanted limited government. It seems to some of us, and yet others, they think that the Christian thing is to provide for your neighbor. And yes, Jesus taught that we should, of our own free will and choice, be willing to, where we can, look after our fellow neighbor. That is not talking about government coming in and stealing from the people and doing wealth distribution. Whenever you have centralized control of anything, it invites corruption, no matter what. In any institution, when you have too much centralization, it invites corruption. Okay. Now, one of the principles is federalism, and I'm going a little bit quick, but just bear with me because you can watch or rewatch this. But I'm giving you reading line for line on the Constitution. What I'm providing you guys is just a very basic core framework to understanding the Constitution. With the concept of federalism, it's this idea that not only do we have different branches of government, which I'll get into more, but beyond separation of powers in the federal level on the general government, national government, we're also distributing power through multiple levels of government as well. Not just separating powers on the federal level, but distributing power down the line as well. Trying as hard as possible to decentralize authority. Because again, when you centralize things, it invites corruption. So federalism is the idea of delegating through multiple levels of government. So not only do we have the federal government, but we also have state government. You have local municipalities and county government. Let me read you the preamble to the Constitution, just part of it. Okay. And I want to emphasize something very important because we see so many slogans. We the people. I'm going to encourage all liberty-minded people to use the full statement there. Use the full phrase before the comma, that first comma. There's neoconservatives that over many years, and it's been a long time, there's been a push to break us from our state identity and look at us as just one big conglomerate of people under the general government. And we should have pride in being American and be proud of our culture, our flag, put our hand over our heart. We should have a sense of pride in our country. But I'm going to personally offer a $50 Amazon gift card or a $50 gift card to Chick-fil-A, you name it, $50 gift card anywhere to anybody. And go in the comment section and find me a reference to the word nation in the Constitution. Anywhere, I don't care where, starting from the preamble to the last article or amendment, where you can find the word nation in the Constitution, you get a $50 gift card. I'm challenging you to go find it. You can even use AI if you want. Show me a reference to the word nation. It doesn't exist. Now hold on, Jacob. Aren't we a nation? One nation under God. We're a nation, right? Right? Wrong. Let me explain. We are 50 nations united in a union together. So we're in a federal union together. We have delegated and agreed to give the general government, we call the federal government, some few powers. And they get to be the final say, so long as it's within that purview. They do get to be the final say within those limits. And so the general government has power over the states on those specific things. But otherwise, under the 10th Amendment, I mentioned the 9th Amendment before, okay? Let's look at the 10th Amendment. What does that say? And why is that so important? So, do you know that James Madison, the framer and nicknamed the father of the Constitution, he said that the entire Constitution is built on the foundation of the 10th Amendment. So this entire thing that they've just built for us, this is built on the 10th Amendment. It says, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. So the federal government is bound to very specific enumerated powers. The Constitution is their permission book. This is not of your rights, the government permission book. It literally is that simple. If it's not in here, they don't get to do it. So now I'm going to come back to the preamble, okay? We, the people of the United States. What I'm going to encourage us to use the full phrase, because we're not just a people, one big conglomerate under the general government called the federal government. We are people of the states. If you look at the way the founders wrote things in referring to comments, writings, they'd always say, the people of the several states, blah, blah, blah. The people of the several states, this or that. That is how they refer to us, not just we, the people. Let's use the full, folks, we, the people of the United States. And that's important because, again, we are people, we're citizens under our states first, and we're fellow Americans. And so I'm a person from Utah. I have elected officials representing Utah, but somebody from Idaho is a fellow American, but we are people of the states. And let's also look at the separation of powers, okay? So one is the longest of the articles, and there's a purpose for that. I mentioned before there's a separation of powers. So federalism is the idea that there's power distributed even down the line through multiple levels of government and different types of government. But then the separation of powers was on the level to make sure that it's not too centralized there. We don't have a king that has some power distributed from it to the states through delegation and the concept of federalism. Even on the federal level, we're separating those powers. So there's the legislative, there's the executive, and the judiciary. The legislative is Congress. So you have the House and the Senate. Did you know that until the 17th Amendment, that the state legislators elected your senator? It was not a popular vote. And there's a very important reason that they did that. They wanted the House to be a voice of the people, directly elected by the people, but then they wanted the states to be able to rein in their senators that have more power than the House. They wanted the states to be able to rein them in. And then some bad folks came in, lobbied to push for the 17th Amendment, told us it was such a brilliant and great idea. And now we do a direct democracy vote to elect our senators as well. Some of these things I can dive in more later. We're just going to touch lightly on some of these things. But Congress writes the laws. And a very important thing to note, again, is that they're bound by specific enumerated powers. So I hear all the time that they think that Congress is given the ability to write law, and whatever they say goes. And it's just our duty as vigilant on telling our representatives whether we like the bill or we don't like the bill. And so that's where our role comes in, is whether on the state level, the national level. Our role is just to simply express whether we like the bill or not, but ultimately the authority is in the legislature to decide what they get to pass. But that's not correct. They are bound by specific permissions. Remember, the Constitution is their permission book, okay? Now, let me go over just a couple clauses that are severely abused. So the Commerce Clause, this is one that's used a lot to abuse power. The Commerce Clause is the idea that anytime one state is doing commerce with another state, then who decides by what state's laws are dictating, regulating the commerce? Do we do it by state laws or by Utah if they're doing commerce together? That is the interstate. So the necessary and proper clause was the next one I wanted to address. So we identified that uh, with the Commerce Clause, that was just to have some kind of final say to regulate commerce between states, but not in individuals' lives. So it was never meant to come in and tell you how much water you can have in your toilet, how much this or that. The federal government was never supposed to come in and be regulating your day-to-day life. It was just between the states. And then the necessary and proper clause is another one. Is oftentimes nicknamed the rubber band clause, because they just love to stretch it and adapt it however they want. And the original intent of this clause was to say that under these enumerated powers or these permissions, so long as it's within this permission, you can do anything that is necessary and proper to pursue this power. So the Constitution, for how much government does, surprisingly, there's very little about what government can do. It's actually designed that way on purpose, because rather than telling you every little policy that you should or should not have, it's guided by principles. But instead of having to say the government has permission to, instead of saying they're allowed to have a post office, but rather than the debate coming up, okay, is the government allowed to purchase land, build a building for a post office? Well, that's kind of given by saying that the federal government can have a post office. It's kind of a given that the federal government would then have permission to build a building for a post office if it gives them the authority to have a post office. And so that is necessary to build and proper. So just because something may be necessary in order to pursue the idea doesn't necessarily mean it's a good idea. So that's why they also added proper. So it must be necessary and proper for the thing in which the Constitution actually permits. It is not a clause that just says anything the federal government thinks they believe is necessary or that they believe is proper to take care of in the community, then they get to do it. Because again, it's only for those things that are specifically spelled out as permissions that the federal government has. In pursuant of those, then anything necessary and proper they can do. And I'm going to jump into the president. And we're coming toward the latter half of our episode here, actually just a few more, less than half. And while I'm taking a pause, I just want to tell you guys again, well, I've got you tuned in. I want to tell you again about our event. So we're going to take a quick break, and I want to remind you about June 13th, our event called A Great Awakening. We've got a free hot dog lunch, chips, drink, and hot dogs. We're providing that for you. Of course, we appreciate a contribution to Liberty United, but there's nothing required of you to attend. Now, there's also family activities and live music, but we've bringing out these faith leaders that are really amazing to charge us up, get us excited to unite behind Christian values and be excited to promote those and defend it in the community. Folks, what would happen? What would look differently if people were more vocal about defending principles? And I don't just mean more people becoming quote unquote red-pilled or awake to corruption. I mean, even those of us that are concerned beyond just rage baiting or complaining on social media, what would look differently in the community if people were excited about actually promoting principles rather than just complaining about problems, promoting true principles and defending these values? We're excited for the event, June 13th. Join us at Draper City Park. We appreciate your support. Check us out at unitingliberty.com and stay tuned for more amazing content. Thank you guys, and we'll see you next time.